Dobra, słuchajcie, to witam wszystkich na naszym spotkaniu. Odmienimy imię i nazwisko Oferem Aderetem, żeby było po polsku. Dziennikarzem Haaretz, ale pewnie też nie tylko, bo gdzieś kojarzę, że pojawiał się tam w kontekście chociażby tygodnika powszechnego w Polsce, chyba jako też osoba, która dostarczała jakieś materiały, ale głównie Haaretz, mostly Haaretz, right?
Right.
No, więc nasze spotkania, pytania będą po angielsku, żeby było precyzyjniej, powiedzmy. Ja będę miał parę pytań, ale w sumie chcemy, żebyście zadali swoje, jeżeli będziecie mieć. Tematem, powiedzmy, wyjściowym jest tutaj kwestia stosunków polsko-izraelskich, ale no, nic nie jest jak gdyby wyryte w kamieniu. Pewnie pewnych tematów też nie unikniemy w jakiś sposób, które są związane z polityką w Izraelu, o którą też zapytamy. Także zaczynamy. Alright, so as you know, I'm Igor from the local DLR club. So this is, as you maybe know, a podcast that is led by two guys that are based today in Warsaw, if I'm not mistaken. So Jakub Dymek and Marcin Giełzak. And we are a part, let's say, of a sort of clubs organizations around. And we are organizing different events like this from people from society, asking them all different types of questions about the matters that are important, let's say, to the community, and we think, like, generally speaking, to everybody. So as myself, I'm leading a kind of Middle Eastern-oriented circle within the club. I'm trying to, let's say, make closer different topics related to that area. Well, we decided to follow up on Israel since let's say I learned from a colleague of mine that you have been around, so I thought that it's going to be interesting for us to have you here with us. So thanks again for coming. And starting with what I mentioned, so maybe a little bit about Polish-Israeli relations. So my initial question, and something that is related to a topic that went through different years, I think, in this complicated relationship, comes from the screening of a movie. I think it was translated as Delegation in English. I don't know if you heard about this. So that's basically Hamishlechat.
Okay.
Yeah, not a very good movie, by the way. But the topic is about those
Mishlachot.
school trips that used to be a very common thing, I think, before the 7th of October.
Or until the COVID started.
Then of course, COVID period as well. Yeah. You're right. And this question of, I would say, related question of the identity, or questions of identity that are somewhere behind it, like in which way both sides are presenting it. And I still saw a little bit the same stereotypes there.
Yeah.
So it's an open question, like
Yeah.
how do you see it? Yeah, like what is the perception, I would say, in Israel today, or in Israeli politics, of Poland, like of Polish society, like from your journalistic perspective, of course, or personal even.
So, as you said, rightly, the relations between Poland and Israel are, to say the least, complicated. Even more than the Israeli-German relations. Because the Israeli-German relations, you can say it's very simple. Germany took fully responsibility of the crimes in the Holocaust, gave billions of dollars as a compensation, what we called shilumim, from the 50s until now, built thousands of memorials all over Germany, including in the heart of Berlin, the capital, and say sorry. This was true, by the way, until recent years. Now it starts to change, but when we will speak about German-Israel relations, we will have more time to talk about this. The Polish-Israeli case is more complicated because in Israel, there are still many, many, many people, just like me, with Polish roots, which means that we heard bad things, negative things about Poland at home from grandparents, grandmothers, some of us even from mother and father. Why bad things? Because of what happened here in the 30s, in the 40s. And I'm not speaking only about the Holocaust. From my own experience, both my grandfather and grandfather was from Warsaw, grandmother from Bendin, next to Sosnowiec and Katowice, you know. So they left Poland in the 30s, before any Nazi German came to the land of Poland, and they left because of anti-Semitism. And they left with very bitter memories of their homeland. And they kept crying about it until their last days in the 90s. Why crying? Because from one hand, they were a part of the Polish society for many generations. If you go to the cemeteries all over, you will see my family buried here with Hebrew names on the matzeva. So I'm rooted and connected to Poland not less than you. Although I look different because of some generations in the Middle East, which colored my skin, and I don't speak Polish, unfortunately, but the generation of my grandparents were fully Polish. Yes, Polish Jews, but fully Polish. They were admiring of Adam Mickiewicz. They went to the concert. They went to the theater to see Polish. They were a part of Polish society in their own special way. They were not Jewish Orthodox, so you could not tell by their look that they were Jews. No, they were not like these Jews. They were relatively liberal, open-minded. And then one day they left. And they did not leave because they wanted to or they chose to. They left because they didn't have any other option. They felt that it's too much for them. And again, it was before the Holocaust. So, when you're speaking with family like my family and ask me about these special relations, then I'm the best example. I married a Polish Christian Catholic believer woman, Karolina, which is the mother of this small guy there. Don't look at him because he will start to talk too much. So, in a way, I was able to overcome this gap and start a new beginning and forgive whoever I need to forgive if I have to. And I live in Krakow now, and I found it amazing. I decided to come back here 2 years ago because of the situation in Israel. So I made the circle, the round that my grandparents, they left Poland with bitterness because of a coming war and because of feeling of violence against them. And I came back because of another war and another violence, and I find peace here. So if you want an example about how much it's complicated, then I'm the right guest. Thank you for inviting me. But, of course, I'm not representative of all Israelis. When you talk with more right-wing or nationalist Israelis, you would find many, many stereotypes about Poland, which is still very, very active in their minds. They would say, all the Polish are, and you can continue. They would say the Polish people as a nation collaborated with the Nazis because they hated Jews from their birth. They would say sentences like this.
Yep.
And it's hard to answer and fight because some of them would tell you, look, read this book, watch this movie, talk with my grandma, she will tell you. And yes, there are terrible stories that we carry with ourselves in our DNA about how Polish people treated the Jews. I know there are also the opposite of righteous among nations, of Poles who sacrificed their own life to save Jews. But the debate is what was more representative correctly of the Polish society in general, and this is a debate which is still going on in the Israeli society. Now, these trips that you related to, these Shoah trips as we call them, it's a very, 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 very complicated and dangerous and difficult thing. I took part in it when I was 17 in high school. And it's not for, it is for a good reason why they choose to take these young children in such a young age to visit Auschwitz and Treblinka and Majdanek and Sobibor. It's just 1 year before we go to the army service. So the idea behind it is to take young people who cannot really think so much open-mindedly because they are still young, they are bothered by the Abitur, and they have so many things on their mind. You know, in this age, you don't really care about Polish-Israeli relations. You care about a girlfriend, a boyfriend, you care about to finish your exams, and in Israel, you care about to prepare to the army service. So in this particular moment, they are taking you to such a trip, which is so emotional, and they brainwash you. In a way, they brainwash you. It's not necessarily against Poland.
Yeah, well, that's I think a little bit my point. If this is not in a sense, like what we see also like in, generally speaking, in international politics where Israel comes, the so-called victimhood card.
Exactly.
That is always played at the end if needed.
Exactly. So yeah, the idea, the goal, the aim is to show that we were victims and we will never agree again to be victims, either of Poland or of Germany or of the Arab world. Because everyone hates us, everyone is against us, everyone is a threat, the danger is still there and it was always there. So we better be prepared and have the strongest army in the world and never trust other people. Some of these points, unfortunately, are still true in a way. Even you don't need to be a fascist, radical nationalist in order to understand that some of these points, especially when you live in a neighborhood like the Middle East, unfortunately are correct. But when I visit Warsaw, I go to Polin Museum and I see a group of 30, 40, 50 Israelis running there and shouting and cursing and talking in such a way about Poland and about everything, I feel a bit uneasy. I would not say ashamed because still it's my people, my friends, my brothers, but I would prefer to make these trips, first of all, not obligatory. And even if it's not obligatory by law, still there is a pressure. Everyone goes, so you don't want to stay at home when all your friends from high school go abroad to Europe.
Sort of ritual, right? Like,
exactly. And it's not only about memorial. It's about having fun with your friends abroad. Who would say no for such a thing? So I would say no. These trips should not be part of high school curriculum. They should be made independently when you finish the army service, maybe during university time, maybe when you're adult, when you can be independent in your thought and more like relaxed and not in the pressure of changing your mind and building, I don't know, more calm. And I found it very uneasy when I still see these trips coming here. Just one sentence to end. I think in the age of 17, 18, we can still learn about everything in Israel. We can visit Holocaust survivors which still live in Israel. We can go to Yad Vashem. There are enough things to do rather than going to see Auschwitz. It creates such a trauma in the minds and hearts of young people, which is hard later to deal with sometimes. And we have enough of traumas and post-traumas in our daily life. So I think this addition is unnecessary. This is my point of view.
Yeah, sure. Well, right. Well, so let's go further. Next point that I wanted to mention is about the story or the question of property restitution. There was a sort of agreement 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure if it profoundly changed the reality, like in place, in a sense that they set up this 30 years old rule that was supposed to be related to the administrative decisions. It still stayed as a point of, I would say, of conflict or that was not solved, but since there was a war, in October 2023. I think this question like moved away in a sense.
Yeah.
But is it still like somehow discussed as a problem in Israel? There are still people who are actively, let's say, trying to get back to this.
Yeah. So you are very cleverly touching the core of the issues, of the problems of these sensitive relations. First, you mentioned the Holocaust trip. Now you mentioned the property. These are exactly two of the biggest topics which will never stop to exist. Even if you make a law, even if you are, I don't know, and why? I will give you my own example. Again, I'm sorry, but this is my best way to express my knowledge through my own. My grandfather had a home, a summer home in Falenice, next to Warsaw. You take the train from Warsaw, from the center, 20 minutes, you're in Falenice. Maybe I don't pronounce it well, maybe Falenica, but I think Falenice, right? Yeah, okay. It's a nice suburb of Warsaw, nice place with some villas and wood, and it's nice atmosphere. They had a summer house there. Every summer they would move there to spend the time. This house, morally, belongs to me now and to my family, to my cousins, family, friends, brothers, mother. But we never got it back. Someone else is living there right now. How do you think I should feel about such a thing? So I will spare you the questions. Personally, I don't care. I have my own apartment in Krakow now. I have my own family and friends and life in Tel Aviv. I don't need this specific apartment in Falenice, although I would not say no to get some money one day, because still. But the idea that someone else is living in a place which belonged to my family and was taken from them, not by the Poles, okay, by German Nazis, but still, German Nazis stopped to exist in 1945. Later came the Russians, okay, but the Russians stopped to exist here in 1989, in the 90s. No one called me and said, hi, we have this apartment, do you want to get it back, or should we send you the money of the renter? Now again, it's not about money. In my case, anyway, really, I would not be a millionaire. There are cases, different ones, which is about money. There are some Israelis who were able, in the recent years as well, to finalize these law cases and got, for example, a whole building in Miodova Street. Why not, if it was belonged to them? So this topic is very, very, very much alive, not among the whole Israeli society.
Okay.
Because Israeli society consists of Sephardic Jews.
Yeah, of course.
So we are talking about a specific certain
slice
group.
Minority.
Exactly. But within them, within the circles of Jews from Poland, who are Israelis now, this topic is and will always be very strong. You can hear it on Shabbat dinners when people are gathering to talk. Sometimes it can come. If someone is going to visit Poland as a tourist, they will ask, would you go to check what about our home, even if no one even knows the address of this home? It's still something which annoys us, which sits here and doesn't let go. And it's hard for us to even to address who are we blaming. We cannot blame Germany right now. Germany paid too much. We cannot really blame Polish people who live there because so many years passed. So I'm not going to come for a poor family who got this house because of the communist regime gave it to poor people or to whatever. So it's hard and it's still there. It's some, in a way it's more philosophical question, theoretical question, something which is about feelings more than about, in most cases, more than about really to get the money. Because in most cases we are not speaking about buildings in the center of Warsaw or in the heart of Krakow, which worth a few $1 million. No, we are talking about small shtetls in the middle of nowhere with without a roof or probably ruined. So no one really wants to get these. So the answer is yes, to put it short.
Okay, yeah. Well then another point that I wanted to mention, it's related a little bit to the Israeli representation here. So previously Mr. Livne, and then now we have Finkelstein, I think, also Yaakov, if I am not mixing their names. So there was, let's say, a sort of buzz campaign not a long time ago. You heard probably about this, related to, of course, the situation in Gaza.
Oh, I was waiting to hear the word Gaza. Finally, let's talk about Gaza.
Okay. I don't want to necessarily directly talk about Gaza, but I wanted to ask about this approach. How do you see it? Showing this, let's say, very politically oriented point of view about this in Poland, which is, I think, at the societal level, not extremely engaged in the topic. Okay, there is even now, I think, a manifestation on the Market Square for Palestine, but still, this is like hundreds of people who are coming there. It's not a social issue, right? It's not something.
It's not Berlin.
So how do you see it? This approach of showing this kind of, I would say, vision even here in this specific way, through those YouTube videos and.
Again, I would be boring and say that it is complicated. And it is complicated because as a Jew from Israel who considered himself to be left or left center, but for sure not right wing, I share some of the opinions of those who are protesting worldwide against Israel, against the war, against Netanyahu, and so on. From the other hand, some of the protesters all over Europe, not only the Arabs one, but especially the, let's say, local ones, the Europeans which are here for generations and not the immigrating. Anyway, they have no clue what they're talking about. Some of them, not like you, who studied Hebrew and probably visited Israel and the Middle East, they don't even know what is the river and what is the sea from the slogan "from the river to the sea." They don't know which river are we talking about, which sea. They don't know a word in Arabic or in English or in Hebrew. They've never been, and they gather all their information from TikTok, YouTube, or whatever. To these people, I have less respect. If you don't know the facts, and some of the facts are complicated and hard, and I'm ready to confront these facts, and I have problems with Israel as well, but if you don't know the facts, and all what you know is that Israel is committing genocide and other slogans like this, then I don't have a common ground even to talk with you. Now, when all these things are happening in Poland or in Germany, it has more, it's more sensitive to the general feeling of us, the Israelis, the Jews, because of the Holocaust, because of Second World War. Some of Israelis might ask themselves, how dare you? And I'm making generalization, okay, because this is the, how dare you, people who were here during the Holocaust, not you specifically, but your criticize us now when people are trying to slaughter us again, this time in Israel. How dare you tell us that we should stop to exist? Because sometimes when people say free Palestine or from the river to the sea, you need to ask yourself, what is the meaning of this? What is the realization of these slogans? If you say from the river to the sea, which means from the river to the sea should be one state, which is called Palestine. And then what about me? and my family and my friends. So situation is very, very complicated all over the world, especially here. I'm sorry, מיחשו, כן.
Special guest.
Yeah, special guest, מיחש Aderet Przewrocka. His second name Stanisław, so he's a mixture of Israeli, Jewish, Polish relations. מיחש, תמשיך לשחק שם, תזכור שקניתי לך, ואחרי זה נבוא. Okay, so this was my answer.
Yeah.
And the special guest.
Okay, but do you think it makes sense to try to convince like a Polish public with the message that they were trying to vehiculate?
I think yes, because we need friends like Poland and we need friends in Europe and we rely on these relations. We are such a small country, secluded, isolated in the Middle East, so we don't have other friends and other colleagues to cooperate. And Poland is a special case because we are in good relationship with Poland for many years, not only because of the common past and because of Jewish people feel connected, but because of other reasons. So it makes sense to convince, it makes sense to explain, but maybe to make it in a clever way, which unfortunately I'm not sure if it's being made right now. Israel is so much self-concentrated for good reason in the last 2 years, so I don't think it had really time to think about how to explain or, the situation to the people of Poland or to the in other places. So we are failing in this battle.
And so I think that's a little bit.
I'm sorry.
that point where sometimes you can have a feeling that actually the people who are, let's say, managing this PR or communication get to a point where they think, okay, everybody ate us, so at the end of the day, whatever we will say, it doesn't matter. We can say whatever we want because it doesn't change anything. So I have this kind of like a feeling when I'm hearing to that, or when I'm listening from time to time to the public radio or looking to the public TV, where you have like a unique narrative, always from this victim side, of course, repeating on and on, let's say, the stories of the survivors of the massacre, for instance. And do you think that I think that they are building another, let's say, level after, let's say, this common Holocaust one of this victimhood, which is a fresh one, and now they're trying to like exploit it in what you call yourself like a little bit of brainwashing from this.
You're totally right. The definition of a second Holocaust is something which is being heard in Israel. For a good reason, by the way. The 7th of October was the most fatal pogrom against Jews since the Holocaust. In one day, I mean, not in the numbers, but in one day. There was no other example. So it is a trauma. It is a national trauma. It is not something that you can just say, okay, it's propaganda or it's PR or you are misusing it. It's more than this. Now, the question is what we could do different. And I have no simple answers for this. People are getting tired about this war, which fortunately was ended, and we are really hoping that it will be permanent, although I'm pessimistic, but this is another question. Now the question is how do you treat people who got tired of hearing about the massacre and about the Jewish victims and now want to talk about the Palestinian victims of the same war? It's complicated. I have no simple answer because the average Israeli will tell you the Palestinian, the Gazans victims, dozens of thousands of them, civilians, women, old people, children, you name it, they are victims of Hamas, not of us. Hamas was the one to initiate this terrible massacre on 7th of October. They would not die if it was not for Hamas to start it. The other people will tell you, yes, but Israel was the one to take these airplanes and shoot bombs on their heads and killing civilians, even if Israel will never admit, in some cases, you could prevent it. So these questions would be left open for generations, I'm afraid, about victimhood, about who is to be blamed, about the feelings. It's still too early, even to start this discussion. People are still in such a shock in Israel. You know, as we speak, last night we got another dead body of a 75 years old Israeli Jew from a kibbutz in South Israel who was kidnapped, killed, murdered, and his body was kidnapped to the Gaza tunnels, and only now they brought it back. He was a grandfather, he was a father, he was a husband. So, and every day now we are getting these dead bodies back and counting our deads. And this is just a week after we got 20 live kidnapped people, which will, for the rest of their life, be traumatized. So I'm afraid it's not that I don't want to touch these topics.
Yeah.
I'm not able to. It's too early. We are in such a trauma, a national trauma. We will need time to process everything, and it will take time, and the price will be big. Emotionally, it will be so complicated, it will change the whole Israeli society, and it will have lots of implications, but it's too early to touch it, I'm afraid. This is what I feel as an Israeli.
Okay, so maybe two follow-up questions on that. One related to Poland as well, because I read a couple of articles about actually not only Israelis, also American Jews, I think, that were like willing to get Polish passports, and some, as you like, are moving here. So is it something that is visible?
Yeah,
like,
good question. I'm happy about this question. There is a phenomenon which is extremely interesting and unique, and no one could ever guess or dream about it, not a decade ago, but 2 years ago. We created here in Krakow, for example, a whole new Israeli community. From nothing, we are now a few hundreds, if not more. And we created our own kindergarten in the JCC, in the Jewish Community Center. We created Hebrew lessons for people like this guy. And we have a club, we are meeting. It started from the war. Slowly but surely, more and more Israelis treated Poland, and specifically Krakow, because it's such a beautiful city, but not only Krakow, it's also all over, as a good place, as a place which is calm, as a place which we could feel welcomed in a way, and we do. When you ask yourself for more reasons, you touched this topic before. You don't feel here this hostile atmosphere that you have against Israelis in other European cities. Some of my friends in Berlin are afraid to send their children to the kindergarten because on the road there are some violent demonstrations against Israel and against. So we don't feel it here. I'm not afraid to speak Hebrew. I'm not afraid to identify myself as Israeli. I feel very welcomed and very good here. And this is really extraordinary phenomenon you would never guess. Because a few years ago, the image of Poland was so negative in the Israeli society. both because of the reason that already mentioned. Poland was connected to one word, Shoah, Holocaust. Auschwitz, Birkenau, this is Poland. No one even knew or could guess that Poland is a modern country with wonderful cities, with open-minded people, with different kind of people, with, Poland was, in our minds, was related to something dark, to the past, to something that we want to forget. It started to change after Poland joined the European Union, after fall of communism. There was a long process of some good years, but no one could ever guess that Poland would become attractive destinations for Israelis to run away or to immigrate from their own country. It sounds like absurd. And if my grandparents would hear it, they would die again inside their graves. You can laugh, it's a joke and it's okay, it's my family, so I'm allowed. Really, it's almost...
Jewish humor is dark humor very often, so...
Yeah. No, but seriously, every day, really every day, I'm asking myself, what would my grandparents say about me marrying a Polish non-Jew, not only non-Jew, but Catholic believer Polish, one thing, and about us leaving Israel to come and start a new life in Poland. It's the opposite of what they believed, of what they did. Until the last days, they would say, really, so many negative things. Poland was a non-issue, it was a taboo. Don't speak about it. They refused to speak Polish at home. They were like, and now I'm betraying this heritage and coming here with my family to live. This is impossible, but it is possible. And we created a flourishing, amazing community, which is going, more and more are still coming here. And people are asking, what kind of jobs do you have in Krakow? How is the school system? What about health insurance? They are asking practical questions which has nothing to do with Holocaust. For the first time since decades, the Israelis are treating Poland as a normal destination and attractive one for Israelis. So this is a huge change, which really, I'm still amazed. Even when I think about myself being here, but when I see the community, and really, we have like a few WhatsApp groups, so every day more and more people are joining with questions. And again, it's not questions about the past and not about history and not about Gaza. It's practical questions. Where do I buy here the best falafel? So we have to recommend them an Arab restaurant, Messiah, if you know, which is really good.
Did you try zaytuna?
Not yet.
You have to, it's better.
And then they're asking you, is it safe to go there? Are these Arabs pro-Israelis or... So I'm telling them, I don't think they are pro-Israelis, but I've been eating them since 2 years there, and I like the taste. No one ever told me something, and actually I feel at home there. The Arab music is my music, because I come from the Middle East. The decorations on the wall reminds me of Israel. Okay, they can call it Palestine, I don't care. And here in Poland, we can even be a bit of friends, sometimes maybe. So very interesting phenomenon is being created right now as we speak here.
Okay, I think that are more or less all questions from my side. So I can still find some, but I would like to give you some space, guys. So anyone who is interested in asking questions to Ofer, feel free.
So I'd like to ask a bit more about the military service, because I don't know any Israeli who had this experience, but when I studied abroad, I had a roommate from Austria who served in the army, and he didn't feel really patriotic about it, but he showed me the pictures of the truck that he drove, the rifles, and he felt proud about himself. So I'd like to ask you, can Israelis really look past this experience? Because I guess they feel proud about it, like themselves, and they might feel a bit defensive when you ask them. So what is your experience when...
It's
comes
a
to military?
very clever and good question. Thank you for asking it. The army service, the military service, is a core part of the Israeli identity. From 48, the War of Independence, or the Nakba, you name it, I'm not here to fight about definitions, until now. Especially when we are talking just a few days after the biggest war since the 48 war was ended. So the military service is not just a service, is not just 3 years of your life. For some, or for many, it's the most important 3 years of their life. Personally, I'm not a representative of your questions because I hated the army service. I didn't want to go to the army. I was afraid of it. I thought it's a waste of time, and I thought that I'm not built from the material to be a warrior or a fighter. It took me lots of time to convince the army that I'm not fit to serve as a fighter. They did not care because I was healthy, mentally and physically. So for them, someone who is healthy like this should be a fighter. They don't ask if you want or not. So they sent me first to Lebanon for half a year. And it was the worst the worst days of my life. Until now, I'm not feeling that until now I have some traumas of this service there. I did not kill anyone and no one tried to kill me, but still the atmosphere of being an occupying army in another land, which is so scary, and this was a disaster. So I don't represent the average Israeli who would tell you proudly, yes, I was a fighter, I killed thousands of Arab terrorists. No. After Israel withdrew from Lebanon, which was the best day of my life, as you can imagine, I got a job in the army, but in the headquarters in Tel Aviv. So there I felt very, very good. It was actually very nice. It was like a job office in the Israeli intelligence. It was very interesting. I learned a lot, I contributed a lot, and I felt good. But I don't have any memories of someone, masculine stories about being in the army. But, as I said, I'm not a representative. Many Israelis, for generations, until nowadays, these are the years which impact and identify the life even dozens of years later. You can still ask people like my father, which is now 75, 76. He still remembers like it was yesterday, his military service. It is so important for these people, and unfortunately also for the young generations. When you go to schools, to high schools all over Israel, you talk with teenagers who are 17 or 18 just before going to the army. Most of them are enthusiastic about it. They are waiting for it. They're like, wow. And later in the army itself, during the service, it's the best time of their life. They make friendship, they have different experiences which you Europeans don't have, and it lasts for years. So the answer is yes, the military service is still a dramatic point in most Israelis' life nowadays still, yeah.
Hi, I would like to address the beginning of the conversation and how the 30s and 40s impacted the Polish-Jewish relationships. Sometimes you might think that it was like Poland was an island of anti-Semitic on the sea of, perfect coexistence. But you have Romanians, you have Hungarians, Czechs, all of those nations were sending the transport to Auschwitz, for example. I know the numbers doesn't line up because of the size of the Jewish diaspora here in Poland that was bigger than in the other countries, but is it a case in relationships with those other countries that I mentioned, for example, Hungarians and Romanians, which were like quite fascist in the 30s, with Ionescu, Iorga, and so on?
To be honest, no. And why?
Yeah.
I think you mentioned the answer. The fact that here in Poland, the numbers of Jews, we are talking about 3 million Jewish people here, 3 million. It was the biggest Jewish community and also one of the most important one. Much more than the communities in other places, Czech Republic, Holland, you name it. So this is one of the reasons that maybe I can start to explain why the blame or the, is focused on Poland and not in other places. But you are totally right. In the discussion, in the memory discussion, in memorial issues in Israel, we are focusing in Poland and not giving enough space, which is not a good thing in my opinion, so I share the same view with you, I guess, to other countries which were sometimes even worse. There are terrible stories about France, about Holland, about other places as well, not to mention Lithuanian and Ukraine. Now, of course, now you are not allowed to speak bad things about Ukraine, right? But still, because then you would be blamed to be pro-Putin if you would say that they were collaborated with the Nazis more than the Poles. So it's better to keep it down right now. But you are touching a point which is very sensitive but very true. So I share the same view with you.
Hi, it would be a kind of a follow-up question to my previous colleague, but first I want to thank you for sharing your point of view and history as well. The fact that you have Polish roots actually will make my question, I think, even better. So I was, at least for a couple of years, wondering, is this I don't know, thought process of narrative present in Israel, why it is the case that there were so many Jews in Poland to begin with, yes? So we know from history that it was because the Jews were persecuted elsewhere, especially in the Middle Ages, Spain, France, and so on, and it was like a safe harbor for Jews to settle. And I'm also aware that the people, the Jews who lives in Poland before the war, were quite often quite successful economically, and in the matter, it's no surprise that they became the object of envy and bad feelings. It would, I think, apply to other nations as well if they were in a similar situation. So, to summarize my question, is there, I don't know, the thought, the narrative present in Israel that somehow we a share of the couple centuries of common history, and like you said, you are very similar to us in terms of your heritage and roots and so on. So at least what can I hear from the news and from political agenda from Israel is that we were very bad because of the reasons you mentioned. I mean, we as a nation, but I don't hear anything similar to we shared this couple centuries of common history we should be proud of, actually.
Very, very good questions. Again, I'm very much happy for the opportunity to speak with such a smart audience and clever people, because you are touching the points which are really relevant. So thank you. The simple answer is that the human memory is short. I'm not able to rely or to comment about life in Poland 500 years ago simply because I did not live there. My father was not there, my mother was not there, and my grandfather was not there. I'm not able to ask my great-great-great-great-mother how was living in wherever in Poland 200 years ago, 300. I'm not able because they're not alive. We don't have anything from them left. There was no video cameras, so we can talk much more easy about what we saw in our eyes or about what we heard from our families. So it's not specifically against the case of Poland. This is human nature. So the discussion is being led by the memories of the last generations who left Poland. And unfortunately, not all, but some of these people were not happy here. Not always, but by the end of the 30s. Now, let me tell you something very interesting and surprising. After my grandmother passed away, Her name was Luba. It's a common Jewish name also among Russians, or Liba, in Hebrew, Ahuva. But after she passed away, we found many documents, that old people keep at home, like photos and letters and things. Now, as I said, my grandparents, until their last days, always said negative things about Poland. All the memories were negative, everything was dark, everything was not good, as you said. Suddenly you open the album, the photo albums, and you see another story. You see wonderful pictures of young Jewish people living happily in Poland. You see photos of my grandmother making ski in Zakopane, smiling to the camera. You see love letters that someone, which I don't know who, wrote to my grandfather, Shmuel, in Polish language. You see that there was life here, not only death and not only anti-Semitism. And then you start to remind yourself, actually, they did talk about Polish culture, about memories of visiting the theater in Poland, about positive things of being Poles. And once when the Polish national hymn was played on TV, or a Polish, I don't remember what was it, but it was like a famous imported melody. My grandfather just stood as if he was a patriotic Polish people. And my mother still remembers it. She was a child and she was shocked. So there is a contradiction. There's no simple answers. And of course, there were many years of many sides and aspects which were different. Also during the 20th century, not only 1,000 years ago. And as you mentioned, you were right. There was a reason why Jews came to live here and not in another place. This was because they were welcomed here. So we cannot portray this situation either black or white. It is much more complicated. And in the same family, when you have horror stories about anti-Semitic incidents before and during and after the Holocaust, you can hear also wonderful stories about friendship between Poles and Israelis. And the generation who stayed after the Holocaust in Poland and came to Israel only in the 50s, in the 60s, during the Gomulka immigration, we call it like this, and in 68 because of anti-Semitism, which had to do with Russia. These generations are still very much Polish patriotic until this day in Israel. So they would not share the same view as my grandparents. They would even distance themselves from there. They would say, we don't have any common ground with you. These people, now in their 70s or 80s, they would have no single bad or negative things against Poland now because they were not experiencing this anti-Semitism of 30s or 40s. Either they were too young or did not exist. So in Israel, you can find also this group, which is a completely different case, which would tell you that if it was for them to decide, they would come back here right now. So complicated answer for a complicated question, but yeah.
No, maybe one last from my side then, concerning political future in Israel, because we didn't talk about this much. As probably within global worldwide trend, we see that is headed to the right side. So how do you see like this future with people like Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, and of course eternal Bibi Netanyahu in the next maybe years? Or
yeah, so unfortunately I'm pessimist, and this is one of the reasons why I'm here and not in Tel Aviv. The war is over, right? So the war is over, so theoretically I can come back, live peacefully, because now Trump promised that there will be peace in the Middle East, no? And we trust Trump. He's a very reliable politician. very normal and stable-minded, and So I take his word, and he promised that there will be a new era in the Middle East. So we are waiting for the peace to start, maybe tomorrow. It was a joke, of course. So first of all, I'm pessimistic about the situation with the Israeli-Arab conflict. I know it was not your question, but it relates to politics, so I will answer. You cannot solve such a conflict in one day and in a deal, as Trump likes to say. You cannot make a deal and solve a conflict which is more than 100 years and which is rooted with religion and which is emotional and which is still... You cannot solve it just like this. So you can ask, so how then can you solve it? I have no idea. If I would know, maybe I would run to politics, but I don't know. And for your question, the Israeli politics is a disaster. The situation is a disaster. The fact that even after October the 7th, there are still people who support Netanyahu. Not only support, but admire him. Mm-hmm. Even after the worst day, the deadliest day in the history of Israel, which he's responsible to. The fact that people still see Netanyahu as kind of a god, it scares me. And it means a lot for the future where we live. And unfortunately, it's not like a minority that you can say, okay, there are crazy people also here and also there. Everywhere where there are human beings, there are crazy people. But it's not only about crazy people. It's about normative people. My neighbors, in every family you can still find supporters of Netanyahu. And kill me, I would never be able to start to understand how can someone still support such a man after what happened. Really, I'm speechless. So it's not only Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. Smotrich and Ben-Gvir are not so popular in Israel. They make lots of noise in the media. They are very radical, so of course the media, which I also have critics, of course, towards, they give them too much representation than what they really are, because they like to invite them to the studio, because they talk in a way which creates conflict.
It's always a buzz.
Exactly. Always a buzz. Like the algorithm of Facebook or Twitter, they are looking for this. So I'm not afraid so much of them. But the fact, again, that this Netanyahu or other people from the Likud party, which became, the Likud became a criminal organization. It's criminal organization. The head of the Likud, Netanyahu, is in charge of so many, corruption things that he should end up in jail for the rest of his life. But it's not the only one. There are so many others which you don't even know their names. Lucky you. You don't have to read this news every day like me. So, and this is the leading party of Israel. And so many people keep voting them because they either admire Netanyahu for their own mental issues, or, which is not less severe, they make it because they hate the other ones. They support Netanyahu and they will keep voting for Likud for the rest of their life, even if the Likud will screw them up just because they want to be against the other. Who is the other? There's always someone to be blamed. The left, the center, the Arabs, And another big problem, which we didn't touch, is the ultra-Orthodox. The ultra-Orthodox is not less scary for me than Netanyahu, and not less scary sometimes even than the radicals in the Palestinian society. I'm not speaking about Hamas, but about people who don't support peace within the Palestinian or Arab Israeli society. The ultra-Orthodox don't see themselves as part of the society at all. They are not a part of this discussion at all. They don't care about me, about you, about the world. They care only about someone sitting there up in the sky. They don't serve in the army. They don't go to work. But they have a very big political power because of the system, the democratic system, which is problematic by itself. But this is for another topic. I'm not supporting dictatorship, but The democratic system creates monsters like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and creates problems like, for now, 10%, maybe 15%, maybe more, which are ultra-Orthodox, which don't contribute to the society at all, but only get money from us. And their vision of life in Israel is not a democracy, is a regime which will be governed.
Rather like Iranian-style regime,
Exactly.
yeah, like a theocracy.
Yeah, theocracy. So this is the future of Israel, unfortunately. Right-wing nationalist fascist, ultra-Orthodox crazy believers, Arabs, which has nothing to do with the Zionist movement and which would rather see me going back to live in Poland, which I did, and a left, which is minority of the minority, and center, which is so weak and so not united that is not even able to say what it wants. And in this kind of future, I don't want my son to live, to grow up. I don't care about myself anymore. I'm okay. But the future belongs to the next generation, of course. And for him, it would be much better to grow up in Europe. I hope. Who knows? Time will tell.
What have happened to the leftists in Israel? Why there is only a right-wing movements in the Israeli politics what we can hear about? And what happened? Are they all with you?
Where are they?
In Poland today?
No, actually, interestingly enough, the Israeli community here does not consist only of left people. We are mixed. You can meet here people from all the range of political views. Netanyahu supporters and not Ben-Gvir, okay, but Netanyahu supporters and what was left from the left. Now for your question. The left in Israel died because of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, even before 7th of October. The left was in its peak during the Oslo records, the Oslo agreements in the middle of the 90s, where the left Labour Party and Meretz Party were in the government, leading by Yitzhak Rabin. And when Rabin was killed, assassinated by a right-wing nationalist radical from the same circle of Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, Yigal Amir was the assassinator of Rabin. When Rabin was killed, actually began the death, slowly but surely, the death of the left. When Rabin was killed, also the chances for peace with the Palestinians started to diminish. Netanyahu came to power because he promised a new approach, which we saw how did it end up. He knows how to treat the Arabs. He knows how to solve the problems of terror. He will lead us to a better place. We saw what was the results during October the 7th, 2 years ago. So he was a fake leader. He's still a fake leader by now, Netanyahu. The left was not able, it was too weak to create and to build a leader in the same level of Rabin. A leader which will be strong enough to unite the country, even people who are not left in their origin but still can trust someone like Rabin, which was an officer in the army, which has a record of, Zionist and so on. So what was left from the left right now is remains of radicals which will never be able to unite themselves or to unite any kind of party because they are too much to decide, too much radical to be accepted by the core of the society in Israel. So no one even treat them seriously right now. And unfortunately, the left, I was voting for Meretz party, I was voting for Rabin. The left was not able to suggest any stable solution for the conflict. Not only because of mistakes of Israel, but also because of mistakes of the other side, of the Palestinians. So the left was actually failing in creating the move for peace. What are the reasons is topic for another lecture.
Definitely, yeah.
And the left was remained without any, it was not attractive anymore. And they started to fight within themselves, become more radical or not relevant. They did not produce any leader like Rabin, and they simply died. So today, there is still some remains of Communist Party in Israel, but it's like a joke. No one takes them seriously. And no, we don't have any left parties anymore.
I have a question about Bibi. As you said, like even if voting and supporting for Bibi Netanyahu, it's against common sense, don't you think that the fact that the quote-unquote peace happened during his administration will only, help his legacy? As you said, the people's memory is short. So if the peace will be relatively stable, wouldn't he be like, the one that ended the war, even if he was the one that, make it such a big deal as it was for the last 2-3 years?
Yeah. So Netanyahu, of course, will try to promote himself as the one, before peace, as the one who was able to defeat Hezbollah, which was the biggest threat, much more than Hamas. And he would now try to promote himself as the one who defeated Hamas and as the one who defeated Iran. I can argue about every one of these aspects, but we don't have much time left, but still. So he will promote himself this. He will not promote himself as someone who brought peace, because peace is something that you should not be proud of in the Middle East in the eyes of the supporters of Netanyahu. Peace is for people who are weak. Peace is for people who are leftists, left radicals. We are not like this. We are proud Zionists. We are proud nationalists. We don't want peace. So he will not mention the word peace. It will just make the voters run away.
More victory like...
Exactly. He would say, I am the one who was able to, despite all the left people telling me not to do that, I was the one to defeat Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, whatever, and I'm the leader, blah, 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 blah. So this is exactly what will start. It already started, but it will grow as we are approaching the elections, which might be in the summer of 26. This is what now the newest date is, I think, June 26, so everyone will concentrate on this date, and Netanyahu will promote himself as the one not making peace, but as the one defeating our enemies. Now about peace, maybe last word. As I said, unfortunately, I'm pessimistic. I don't think that Trump and Europe will have the time and the courage and the needed, you need lots of patience in order to promote peace in this area. It takes much more than a nice deal or a post on Facebook or a nice press conference. It's a process which is boring, which is hard, and nowadays we live in a time of things need to be quick, yes, be short. Video clip, it needs to be in TikTok, it needs to be like this.
Roll.
You cannot solve the peace in the Middle East like this. So my prognosis is very pessimistic. I am quite sure and quite convinced that it's only a matter of weeks or months until the next escalation will erupt.
Take place, yeah.
And this is why I feel that it was a good decision in my own case to be here. Yeah.
Okay, guys. I think we are already out of time. So once again, thanks, Ofer.
Thank you for inviting me.
Coming. Thanks everybody for your questions.
Thank you.
And yeah.
תודה רבה.
תודה לך.
Michash, are you alive?